Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, one of the things that have come out of proposals to have scientific campaigns and elections is the fact that challengers have now been given a huge mountain to climb. From lack of name recognition, they have also been denied a chance to connect with the voters, but they've also been handed advantages like lower costs. And to speak to us about this, we have two aspirants, Kenneth Nsumuga from the NRM, who is challenging Minister Rona Chibule in Mukono North, and we also have Flavia Kalole Nabagambe from People Power, who has the advantage of jostling for a new district in Kasanda. Later on, we will be joined by Siraje Tifampa, who is challenging MP Katoluwama in Rubaga South. But I do have Ms. Kalole and Mr. Kenneth Nsumuga. Very good morning, and thank you for joining us on Morning at NTV.
Good morning.
Now, the question everyone is asking, are you ready as candidates or aspirants for this scientific election? I'm going to start with Ms. Kalule. What do you make of these scientific elections?
Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all the viewers. Thank you so much for the question, and thank you for this topic. I think it has come at the right time because we have just about a few months to elections. And of course, everyone was excited about elections. I personally have been excited because I feel like I have been campaigning for the last 5 years because I contested in the 2016 general elections, and shortly after I was informed that my district was going to vote.
Under what ticket?
Independent. I was the second out of the 4 candidates, so I immediately embarked on a campaign journey starting 2017. And 2018, my district was passed, and unfortunately, we were even given a date for electing, but that was, that was never acquired, that was never achieved. So I've been campaigning all throughout. So this scientific election, while I was firing up to go all the way to the political rallies and all, then boom comes the, the huge, the improper, unexplained, unconsulted scientific election.
So it caught you off guard?
Of course, it caught every Ugandan off guard. It caught every candidate, every aspirant off guard, because we all know that campaigns are about movements, rallies, and speaking, mingling with people, meeting people, talking to people, because even when we have those campaigns, we still have people in areas that keep saying that if I haven't seen you, then I am not going to vote for you. So if you have the biggest percentage of such people telling you this, and now here comes the scientific election, which is clearly unexplained, because even the guidelines of the Electoral Commission are still unexplained, and they are still wanting, because they haven't yet even given us all the guidelines. They are bringing them out in piecemeals, which we cannot even debate well, because as we are debating the scientific elections, which they haven't yet told us how they will be conducted, the details haven't yet come out. Then they will throw to us the nomination, fees, which we are not yet sure of till now, because there was a looming debate some time back about whether they would increase parliamentary nominations, presidential nominations or not. That also went silent, so we are not yet sure of that. Then they haven't yet also told us the modalities, but also even the dates of campaign. So they need, first of all, to first give us all the guidelines. Give us time to analyze all the guidelines, debate all the guidelines, see what is workable and what is not, advise them. But also, most importantly, the campaign period. When I contested in Kasanda, in between everyone knows that in an election, you start earlier. When I contested in Mubende district, you start earlier the campaigns before you actually go into the nomination campaign period for as stipulated by the Electoral Commission. But one of the challenges we got was about the campaign period given by the nominations, which is extremely brief, and yet at that time it was about 3 months.
Yes.
And now it has been shortened even further. So that means that for me, who has a district that comprises 3 constituencies, that is Kasanda North, Kasanda South, and Bukuya constituency, with over 500 villages in there, it will be almost impossible to go to all the corners, of my district in such a short period. We needed to have a longer period.
You won't be going to all the corners of the villages.
Of course, we won't be going, but this is a virtual campaign. Yes. And now I'm giving you the difference between what we needed to do and what we had to do, and in comparison, and what is on ground right now. Because with a virtual campaign, I have my statistics here, because I had prepared for an election earlier. I had already realized and calculated that of the population of over 271 people in Kasanda, only 15,000 of those can do what? Households who have their main source of information as a radio. And I'm not even talking about TVs, because TVs are a luxury in rural areas where I come from. Very few households have TVs. Most people converge in town centers to be able to watch a TV from a bar. And how many modern bars do we have in rural areas across Uganda, you know, that can be able to do that? And we only have about 40,000 people in 40,000 people in Kasanda that have at least one mobile phone of all the 200, 300 plus that are supposed to vote for me. Because as a woman MP, you're voted by everyone. So if I have only about 40,000 who can access mobile phones, and those mobile phones, less than these 40,000, can even access smartphones. So how am I going to reach them digitally when I cannot even communicate with them? Campaigns are about public speaking. They're about impression, perspective. They're about the picture, looking at you. How do you express yourself? They're about connecting with the people. How am I supposed to connect with the OTT that is here with people, with the characters that are limited on Twitter with people? How am I supposed to express my message to be understood clearly with rural people who don't even understand certain basic things and they need to be explained to verbally? So you see the challenge we have, and we have only about 3,000 people in my constituency who can access internet. That
is an interesting submission. You know? Mr. Kenneth Nsubuga,
I think
72% of the people in Uganda do not have access to these digital platforms, and this election is going to be based on virtual campaigns. Do you think it's really rational?
I think it is a question of balancing, and we as political players need to know what is more important. Are the lives of Ugandans more important than our political ambitions, or our political ambition is more important than the life of Ugandans? And two, what legal framework is the EC operating in? Because I've had rumors or I've had debates that these elections, if they cannot be organized in the ordinary way, they need to be postponed. But EC doesn't have that mandate. The legal framework of the country as we stand now is that we are supposed to have these elections by February. Otherwise, if you don't hold them by February, you'll have a constitutional crisis. And you know, there has not been any state of emergency that has been declared. Because if there had been a state of emergency declared under Article 110 of the Constitution, then probably Parliament would extend its term for another 6 months. That cannot happen. Now, if you don't hold presidential elections in February, then what happens to government? Because you cannot extend the term of the president. So the Electoral Commission has to organize these elections. That is a given. Now, having understood that, then we need to know, how can you organize these elections? So are you going to sacrifice the life of Ugandans just because we political actors want to come into office? I think that is where the Electoral Commission is coming from. And I have heard rumors that what they are doing is illegal. Of course, also that is not true. Because when you look at the Presidential Elections Act, specifically Section 21, which is parliamentary to, I think, Section 20 of the Parliamentary Elections Act, they say the Electoral Commission can determine the manner and period of the campaigns. So we as political players need to adjust. And with the explanation of the chairman of the EC, I think that is possible. Now, these difficulties of how am I going to reach the people, I think it is a question of adjusting. You know, we have a problem in Uganda. We have political actors who thought that they would sing their way or dance their way to political positions. I told you that during last time I was here. Now, when it comes to coming on radio, coming on TV, writing out a manifesto, now that means issues that people will listen. What is Nsubuga saying? How can he articulate issues?
Are you saying the opposition doesn't have a manifesto that actually bases on the issues that are affecting the people in Uganda?
I think Uganda's problem as we speak now is not banging saucepans. It's not
Mr. Kenneth, the banging of saucepans was to mobilize people and to let the world know that they are there.
Let me finish. Actually, these scientific elections are going to affect the NRM more. Because President Museveni primordially wins in the rural areas. The Kasandas, my colleague is talking about, that is NRM stronghold. When you look at our mothers, when you look at our aged people, many of them can't access these facilities, like she's saying. So that is going to be a negative for NRM. Not them, because their demographic is high-tech. Kampala, Wakiso, their demographic is high-tech. So, and you see, my candidate, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, is going to be affected more because he's a crowd puller. He has been pulling crowds since 1996 when these elections started. So he's going to be affected more. And you know, President Museveni wants to traverse the country, go to their households, look at his people. So he's going to sort of be constrained to sit in a chair and articulate issues. So me, what I'm thinking is, as political players, we need to readjust. My worry is not with the national election, by the way. My worry is with the NRM primary. Because we amended our constitution to provide for lining up. Now, whereas the national election is possible with the scientific way of elections, because you have social distancing, 10 people can come to the line, then wash their hands, go tick and everything, sanitize, whatever, come with masks. Now, how do you organize an NRM primary where people need to converge in a village and line up against a candidate or a post of a candidate? Now, that is the challenge that my party is grappling with now, and I think we need also to readjust.
And of course, you mentioned that President Museveni has been pulling crowds since 1996.
1996,
but then
yes.
all those crowds and those elections have been mired in controversy. The election in 1996, it was contested by Paul Mwanga, the runner-up.
Which Paul
He
Mwanga?
got his 1.4, as Apostle Mogerere. He got his 1.4 million. President Museveni got his 4 million. But then he said he does not accept the result. Why? Because there was underage voting during that election. The same in 2001 when Besigye came around. 2006.
You know me, I've been in politics.
Irregularities have mired most of the elections.
I've been in politics for a long time to know that politics is like soccer. When Arsenal loses 3-0 to Man City, either they will blame the defender, they will blame the ball, they will blame the referee, we had enough fans, we had blah, blah, blah. Because if these elections have not been free and fair, how is it that we have opposition members of parliament, opposition members in parliament? How do they come? Because it is the EC that organizes these elections. And out of these elections, we get members who are in the opposition coming to parliament. So it is
But the election in 2001 was contested by the Supreme Court. Yes. Three out of the five judges, held the vote and said they could not actually call for a rerun because the evidence that was being adduced was not enough to actually warrant a cancellation. That happened in 2006. It also happened, Besigye did not petition in 2011. It also happened in 2016 when Mbabazi petitioned.
Let me take you to 2016. Presidential elections are organized on the same day with parliamentary elections, isn't it? Now, when you look at the current setup of the parliament, how many MPs come from FDC?
That's always the argument from the NRM.
No, I'm asking.
When we talk about how the elections haven't been free and fair since time immemorial.
What you want Ugandans to believe is that somebody comes on the ballot paper on a polling day, then it goes, the ballot paper of presidents ticks the key. Then it goes to the ballot paper of the member of parliament and it ticks the bus. That is what you want Ugandans to believe, because at the end of the day, President Museveni wins, gets over 300 members of parliament from NRM, FDC has about 30, and then you say, we won the election when you have 30 MPs. Then, hold on, then after a month or 2 weeks, we organize LC5 elections, and NRM out of, let me say, 120 districts takes about 115. And then you say still there is cheating. Then we go to local council elections. NRM wins by about 90%. Then you say there is cheating. So I don't know whether you want to get apples when you planted mangoes.
Mr. Kennedy, you need to read the submissions of the Supreme Court.
I've read them.
They've always maintained the election was not free and fair, but the evidence being adduced is not good enough to warrant a nullification.
That is not what they have already
But
said.
let me bring it.
They have already said
Yes.
there were irregularities, but they were not substantial to affect the results in a substantial manner. And that is the test of an election petition.
Let me bring in Ms. Kalule. Ms. Kalule, we have this election that is coming forth in 2021. Do you believe this time around, based on the history we've been seeing, the way we've been organizing elections, at least since 1996, do you believe the NRM government has what it takes actually to organize, the Electoral Commission, to organize a free and fair election?
No, I don't. I really don't believe that the Electoral Commission can organize a free and fair election in Uganda here, especially given the circumstances under which the Electoral Commission is appointed. Because you cannot bite the hand that feeds you. We have seen in fact, hardly seen circumstances where the Electoral Commission has come out, pronounced itself on even the election malpractices. Because there is overwhelming evidence that a lot happens, especially a lot of illegalities happen during a campaign, and always the Electoral Commission never pronounces itself on any of this. The different observers that are always highlighting these illegalities, the different civil society organizations, the different, I know even said the last time gave a report about electoral malpractice, but EC has always dismissed this. I witnessed in my constituency, you know, NRM staffing ballots. I always witnessed DPCs, chairpersons LC5, RDCs, always ailing and always guiding the system, especially the NRM candidates, onto what to do. They are always using state resources during campaigns. There are so many things that you are always complaining about, but they always pay a deaf ear. We go to an extent of getting the culprits and taking them to the police stations, and they are always released because they are NRM, you know, sympathizers or NRM agents or NRM anything. So I really cannot guarantee that the EC can organize a free and fair election. What I can guarantee is that Ugandans can come out in large numbers to ensure that they have a free and fair election, so that it's too overwhelming for the EC not to pay a closer eye or to pay closer attention to it. Because and I see what my colleague here is saying, that there in fact so many of us have been dancing our way to parliament or dancing our ways to different, you know, political offices, and that rallies, Museveni always has so many rallies, etc, etc. But you have also seen that from the time People Power emerged, and from the time our principal Robert Kyagulanyi emerged on the scene of politics, numbers, mass numbers, huge masses have always been the order of the day. That even when he's just taking a casual walk, you will always get the numbers. Even when he's just moving from place A to place B, you will get the numbers. As juxtaposed to the NRM candidates that he has been with. This has
nothing to do with coronavirus, but the fact that Mr. Bobi Wine was growing popular in politics?
Of course. We know that COVID is real and dangerous. We cannot overlook that fact. But we also know that the government, this government, is trying to use the COVID-19 pandemic to tighten its noose on opposition activities. The restrictive measures are becoming tighter and tighter by the day, and this we saw even before the COVID-19, because there were so many electoral reform proposals that kept coming in Parliament, and they were being bashed, all targeting one political movement, that is the People Power movement. And we kept taking them through one by one, bashing one by one, but these were all payday. I mean, remember, we were supposed to have started our consultations for the presidential candidate much earlier, but you also, the system and the environment that was, the restrictive environment that was imposed on the People Power movement candidate that was supposed to move around, you know. So this is not a new thing. In fact, I think the emergence of COVID-19 has been an answer for President Museveni and this government, because now you can clearly see he even looks much better. He's more relaxed. He has been enjoying the ambiguity of all the media houses, the media stations. He has clamped down on opposition. There is no pressure whatsoever. So I think one way or the other, he's actually jubilating, and his people, these guys are jubilating because it is working highly in the NRM favor.
I have a very crucial question for you, Ms. Kalule Flavia. If Electoral Commission doesn't have what it takes to actually offer you a free and fair election that is not marred with irregularities, then why are you participating in this electoral process?
That's why we are rallying citizens to mount pressure on the Electoral Commission so that it can do what it's supposed to do, because they can do it, but they just choose to pay a deaf ear to some of these irregularities. Of course, if they were to take heed of all the alternative proposals we are putting across, and if they were to take heed of, to critically analyze the environment and listen to some of the things that we are telling them, including not doing a scientific election, because Uganda is going nowhere, Romeo.
Right.
Ugandans are here. We are all here. Candidates, those who are aspiring, will be here. God forbid that you will die along the way, but we are supposing we shall all be here. What's the rush? We can have a free and fair election where we know that we have a higher chance of getting that election out, in ensuring that citizens participate,
that is
more
an interesting,
in comparison
that is
to
an
now.
interesting submission, Flavia. Flavia is saying, she's not saying that we should have an election during the coronavirus. What the opposition is calling for, a postponement, until they know they have clear ground to actually hold a free and fair election.
I think members of the opposition need to be honest with Ugandans. And I think that is why Ugandans have been rejecting them at every election.
Explain.
Because they are not honest. There is a time President Museveni came out and said, organizing elections when we have this pandemic will be risky. They rose up the next morning. Museveni wants to use COVID to extend his stay in power. You remember that?
I remember.
You remember that interview?
Yes.
Now, Electoral Commission is coming and saying, we are having these elections. Now, the same people, I have never had any opposition anywhere in the world agitating for a postponement of elections. Because opposition was supposed to be there as an alternative to government, and you want to take state power. How will you take state power when you are agitating for postponements? Then I told her, and I have told you, and our viewers there, that the legal framework of a country, as we stand now, does not provide anything with postponement. Because to postpone an election for parliamentary, you need the president to go to parliament with a proclamation to declare a state of emergency. And then parliament extends this term and all of these other local leaders to 6 months. But with President Museveni, that cannot even be done by parliament. It's by referendum. All Ugandans have to agree that we want to extend the term of the president from 5 years to, let me say, 6 years or 7 years. Now that means the EC will organize a referendum, which is an election. So they need to be honest with Ugandans and see what is possible and what is not possible. Then the other matter is, who is new in Uganda? Because if it is Kano Besigye who is coming to contest again, because we heard they formed an alliance. They have
United Forces for Change.
They have not told Ugandans who of the two is going to be on the ballot.
They are working on it.
They are working on it. Of course, I know at the end of the day they will disagree and all come. But Kano Besigye has been standing since 2001.
Yes.
So every Ugandan knows him. His message has always been clear. Defiance, to Balemese, to Erwaneko. So what is new there? My brother, Honorable Kyagulanyi, is a new entrant. He has been popular as a pop star. I don't think there is any corner in this country that does not know that Bobi Wine wants to be president, even when you ask a child of 5 years. So I don't know what their worry is, because Ugandans know, they know their message. I think their worry is coming like I'm here to articulate issues and tell Ugandans, I want to be president because this is what I'm going to do to the economy. I'm going to do this to the pharmaceutical industry. I'm going to do this to foreign exchange. I'm going to do this to this. So I think that's where the worry is,
so
articulation of issues.
You're saying Mr. Bobi Wine and Mr. Besigye shouldn't be worrying at anymore because they already know?
No, one, they are known. Two, we know they want to be president. We know their message. Ugandans know 80% of them have rejected the message.
You cannot buy into that. President Museveni has experience of 7 elections, but he still campaigns. He spent over 75 billion shillings in 2011 on an election. Why would someone spend such money yet you have an experience of seven elections?
That is why I'm telling you that this scientific election actually favors the opposition. Because one, like you're saying, Museveni will not put in the money you are talking about. Museveni will not come to the villages, women dancing, we put our dried banana fibers on and what have you. So he will be sitting in State House, communicating on radio and TV, like she said, is composed and what have you. I think now they have an opportunity. And by the way, let me remind Ugandans, this mode of organizing elections does not mean you don't have interaction with the voters. No. Because you can move in the villages, your electoral team, your campaign committee, your team can move in the villages. I don't think that any person who wants to be president of Uganda thinks he's going to meet every individual Ugandan and ask a vote personally. I don't think any person willing to be member of parliament thinks he's going to meet the 40,000 also voters in the constituency personally to ask for the vote. So there are mechanisms. All we need to agree as Ugandans, what is more important, we as political players, going to parliament or the life of Ugandans. Because she has said, that's what I wanted to quote from her, which I enjoyed hearing, that coronavirus is real.
It is.
She has said it. Coronavirus is real.
Of course it is.
Now, if she says it is real, then it will be dishonest to tell Ugandans that Museveni is using the coronavirus to extend his staying power. When you have said it is real, so it is not a concoction. It is not that he's creating it. It is real and it is with us here.
Let's talk
so
about
now the question is, how do you grapple with it?
Okay.
Do you send Ugandans to rallies and mass gatherings to expose them to the virus, or you manage it and conduct an election according to the legal framework of the country?
They are talking about a postponement, Kenneth, not to have an election during
the postponement is not possible.
Times.
Actually, Honorable Chagulanyi is a member of parliament. That is the work of parliament. What is parliament saying?
That's where I'm coming. Is there goodwill in Parliament to actually pass an enactment of the Constitution to actually postpone this election, given the fact that in Parliament, you as NRM legislators, you have the majority. So there could be no goodwill in Parliament to pass a postponement.
Unfortunately, I'm not a member of Parliament now.
Yes. But then we saw Article 102B being removed without any problem. For the president to continue with his presidency. So why is it so hard to enact or amend the Constitution to actually postpone this election and have it when we are not grappling with COVID-19?
But something confuses me.
It is with age.
Yeah, but something confuses me. People have been singing a song for the last 5 years. Museveni doesn't have support. NRM is weak. We are going to defeat him even before 2021. You're getting my point? NRM is gone. It doesn't have people. Now the chance is being presented to them to show that we don't have people. They are running away from the chance. So what is happening? I'm failing to understand. Because they are not saying a Ugandan will not go to vote. They are saying every Ugandan will go, because you cannot now scientifically handle that. Because polling means a person goes to the polling station and carries a ballot. That right is being guaranteed. It's not being taken away. So what is opposition fearing? They don't want Ugandans to exercise that right? What are they fearing? Unless they had something planned to use in these campaigns and the Kavuyo, like they did in Arua and what have you. But if the issues, Ugandan is listening and making a decision who should be their president, who should be their member of parliament, I see no problem. So long as the safety of Ugandans is guaranteed.
Flavia, will it be cheaper for you to campaign now that we are not doing with, we are doing away with public campaigns and the whole kakuyege, the whole quagmire that comes with campaigns? Will it be cheaper for you now?
Thank you, Romeo. Actually, contrary to what you may think or what other people may think, especially NRM diehards, it will be more expensive to campaign in this kind of arrangement, in the scientific election arrangement. It will be extremely expensive. Why? Because where I would basically just go to a village and gather with people or sit in any part of the compound or anywhere with the citizens in their houses, or that is not going to happen. I would ideally just spend money on fuel and get there, talk to them. Right now, resources that we know are the biggest challenge for so many young people who for the first time are going to engage in these elections, because most of them have come of age. Most of them have been inspired by the Funendaga Muntu campaign. Most of them have been inspired by Bobby Wine. Yes, he is an inspiration to so many people. And he has brought in so many new players in the field. Most of them would want to have a fair shot at being active citizens of their country in terms of elections, but also in terms of actively engaging in terms of as candidates, as aspirants. But now we know the biggest challenge for young people is money. And we know the biggest weapon NRM has always used to win elections is money, because they are very well conversant of buying off people, of buying off agents, of buying off, of just dishing out money to people, 1,000s, 2,000s, to buy them salt, sugar, whatever it is, because they have highly impoverished Ugandans to an extent that Ugandans cannot decide for themselves, especially in rural areas, without the power of that money, the 500, the 1,000 that they distribute every day, or the sugar and salt that they're always giving out. Which is worse. Now, what is going to be now? Before we had a fair chance at countering some of these things.
True.
Physically, you would go and explain to people, reach them and tell them about ABCD, using minimal resources. Now it is going to be worse, because they are going to, first of all, they have the rigging expertise. in terms of digitalizing this scientific election, they control the machines. We don't know what they are going to do with those machines, because before, at least I would tell my agents that 6 of you should be at a polling station, monitor. I would tell my agents, follow the vehicle that is taking the ballot papers. I would tell them, do ABCD. I would tell them so many things, and they would want to fight. They would want to, it's about giving them an opportunity, winning an election fairly. I don't mind if President Museveni or any other candidates can win this election, but as long as it is a fair, equal opportunity. Look at the airtime, the radio stations and the media house and the TVs that they are telling us to go to. Majority are owned by NRM guys.
Especially in the rural areas.
In the rural areas. In my own district, Mwende district is where all the radio stations are, because it was the big district. Mine is still a young district. We have about 5 radio stations in there. Of the 5, all 4 are owned by politicians. Prominent NRM politicians that you are all very aware of. Now, take an example. If your opponent is the one owning those radio stations, how are you going to get a fair chance at being listened to and heard, even given airtime? We all know that during political campaigns, and this is common knowledge for so many politicians, so many radio stations charge exorbitant prices for politicians in order to run adverts, to even make an appearance like on a show like this. But what that is going to triple now, because they will know this is the only source. Nsuga, first wait, I do not interrupt you when you're talking, because this is going to be the only source of reaching the masses, which will be terrible. But also look at the capacity of building an infrastructure. Some of the things that we do, especially when you're building an infrastructure, for a person who's a first-timer in a campaign, leave alone this guy who is arrogantly saying that, who doesn't know BCJ, who doesn't know Bobby Wine? Yes, they may know you by name, they may know you in the capacity you held before, but they want to listen to what new thing you're bringing on board in this capacity. Yes. What are your ideas? And we all know that amaso gomuganda gali mungalo, literally meaning that the person will believe you or will know that what you're talking about is tangible and is real if they have met you face to face, So if we are using digitalization of if we are using just the scientific elections, I've forgotten that one.
Scientific elections.
Yes, scientific election, but digitalizing digital platforms. Yes. Thank you so much. If you're using digital platforms, how are you going to convince people? How are we going to build infrastructure to that new person that is joining? How are you going to ensure that you get the right credible people that will not be bought off just by, interacting with them online? I mean online or through, because we know that we always get agents, we build structures, and these guys are bought off. You have to always ensure that you're checking on them, you're analyzing, is this the right person? Is this the right person? And now with the minimal financial support to do this, which NRM is going to use, they are also going to use the advantage of rigging digitally, which they have always done. They are also going to use the advantage of incumbency, but also NRM has those structures, LC, etc., etc., which they have always freely utilized. But now they are not even giving us a fair opportunity at building, because remember, even before COVID, the restrictions, the restrictive environment on opposition was very high. There was no chance, especially of us meeting people in rural areas. Now elections is when you can freely do that. But now they've also cut off that opportunity from opposition, from the opposition. That means that you are still going to have an election that literally has no infrastructure set up for so many people, especially all the new players in the game, which is entirely unfair, because we should give equal opportunity to everyone. We are going to have an election that does not give equal airtime to people because of the different dynamics. It is not new that you sit in a studio as an opposition leader and they will take you out. The RDC, the DPC, in Mubende, it has happened so many occasions for KB, who is BCJ. It has happened so many occasions for us. They label opposition and they label that
it has been happening one too many times, and we were wondering if it won't continue during this election process.
It will just intensify. It will just intensify, because they'll know now this is the only opportunity for Ugandans to listen to opposition.
Before Kenneth Peters in, Flavia,
so we really reject.
I'm sure there are pros and cons that come with this scientific election, but there must be some advantages, Flavia. What are those advantages?
The advantages are very minimal, but I would give you about 2. They are minimal because elections, like I said, are about movement, interaction with people. Basically, election, that is what an election should be like. An interaction with people physically. not digitally. Digitally, of course, the advantage is it will promote certain social media pages. It will encourage some people to join social media. It will also encourage some politicians to think out of the box, which is okay. It will also encourage the Electoral Commission to try to see how to digitalize the circumstances, but also to get new IT and all that. But for me, Romeo, this shouldn't be the idea. This shouldn't be the idea, because an election is about people and it should be for people. So we are supposed to ensure that we interact with the people more, and to ensure that at least everyone gets an equal opportunity, so that the EC can answer most of the questions that we have, because now the scientific election creates more questions than answers for the Electoral Commission. They need to come out clearly.
All right,
so that we can have
Flavia,
a feasible,
we've run
given
out
the
of time.
circumstances.
And a submission from you, and then we call it wraps.
You see, it is not always good to raise an alarm when there is no cause. She's saying you cannot go to the villages and talk to the people. The EC chairman was very clear that UCC is going to be engaged, such that local radios, these are at village level, can be assessed.
How many times have they said that?
Then the scientific election does not mean that a candidate does not have agents to do what she wanted to do, follow the votes, follow what. That did not come out in the submission of the chairman. So me, I think the opposition is just laying grounds to explain to Ugandans and probably their donors why they lost this election.
Are they also lying about there are people being thrown out of radio stations and TV stations? Because it was happening. And where is the guarantee that it won't continue to happen?
You see, management of the state is not like managing a family. So I wouldn't be here to ask or to ascertain under what circumstances somebody was removed from a radio station. That is for another day. But what I'm saying is they're just laying a ground to explain to their donors why they lost this election, because President Museveni is going to win it by about 80%. All the indicators are clear. The opposition is disorganized. They are disjointed. They don't have any message. They don't have any new thing they are telling Ugandans. COVID now is the problem. They are not coming up with the solutions. They are not providing any alternatives, but it's just a rhetoric of singing. Museveni has been a long time, NRM has money, NRM this, NRM this. So now, once we get that out of the picture, then this election becomes about issues. Have we handled electricity? Is there real electrification? Is there industrialization? Are we getting our youthful Ugandans jobs? Is security okay? These are the issues Ugandans are going to base on to vote. And once those issues are put in the perspective, then NRM will win.
Many thanks, Kenneth Nsubuga and Ms. Kalole Flavia, for having made the time to speak to NTV. We do hope these scientific elections work in your favor, both of you. Well, you're still watching Morning at NTV. We are going to take a brief break. We'll be right back with more information. Keep it here.